guys, Veggie Gamer back in episode 4 of the amazing digital circus is in the books. We've learned a lot about every player character, if I can call them that, especially the episode's focus, Gangle. Gangle has always been a great character, but up until now I've been more of a Kinger or a Jax kind of guy. That being said, I genuinely think that episode 4 has changed this, and Gangle is now my favourite character. I'll do my best to explain why, but something dawned on me for the first time, which others may have seen long ago in the character. A little backstory about myself, if I may. I'm Veggie. I've been doing this YouTube lark for a while now. Only a couple of years ago, I was actually diagnosed as being autistic, or on the spectrum, as they say. I must admit, at the time, I really didn't know what that really meant, so I've done my own research into finding out what it's like to see the world through the viewpoint of a non-neurotypical person, if that makes any sense. Something that has come up on the channel a few times, I often see traits of autism in characters from games, movies and TV shows. Often I'm just grasping at straws and the conditions that the characters have are actually different than I think, but there are then some characters that are just 100% neurodivergent. Episode 4 for me completely cements the idea that Gangle is indeed autistic, or at least living with another neurodivergent condition. The main clue for this has actually been staring us in the face since the pilot, but let's not go all the way back there and look specifically episode 4, Fast Food Masquerade. The episode starts off, as always, with Gangle having her comedy mask smashed. It turns out that Zubal has found a replacement plastic one that won't break as easily. As soon as Gangle has put the mask on, the first thing she says is,
"It feels normal. Like, in a good way."
Suddenly she is by far the most confident we've ever seen her. She's standing at the front and centre while the adventure is being chosen. She's speaking up, giving her opinion, speaking her mind, and asking for something a bit more normal. She even is excited to be given the role of shift manager, which she mentioned she'd actually previously done. Straight away, she gets right back into the role. Jax, being Jax, instantly starts to push her buttons and see how far she can be pushed, but he's actually surprised when Gangle instantly shuts his shenanigans down by calling Kane. This is stuff that Gangle, the Gangle that we know, would never usually be like. Usually during the adventure announcement, she'd be near the back. Jax is usually giving her a hard time with no comeback. So this is very, very strange for her. Jax then asks what's going on, and Gangle's reply is,
"It's called a manic episode, and you're getting 3 more seasons." Anyway.
Now, a manic episode is an actual condition, guys, which apparently is more associated with bipolar disorder, but it is something that a lot of people on the spectrum have. I should really jump forward to the main point that I want to make in this video, guys. The mask has clearly had a huge effect on Gangle. For those who don't know, people with autism, or people who are neurodiverse in general, often put on a fake persona when in public, at work, or around strangers. This is a protection technique called masking. It's an attempt to fit in, and how Gangle would put it, to feel normal. This isn't always something that is knowingly done. People can just do it naturally without actually realizing. One of the first things that I realized after being diagnosed is that I actually mask a lot, especially when I was at work. I would put an incredible amount of energy into pretending to be like someone that I wasn't. It may sound strange, but it's actually surprising how exhausting it can be to do, especially for a working day. And I believe that is exactly what Gangle's mask is actually doing to her. Being back in this position of authority, she starts to struggle with the fact that the others aren't really taking the job as seriously as she wants. Apart from Zubal, who more on her later, because I love the end of this episode. But Jax, Ragatha, which to be fair, it's not really her fault, and Pomni start off not really following the orders Gangle has given them. We start to see Gangle go from this manic high to extreme frustration, and when Pomni says how it really doesn't matter because it isn't real, something snaps inside of Gangle's mask. We see this 2 more times when Jax and Ragatha say how they kind of prefer Gangle's a less happy persona. For an autistic person, they just often want everything to be as expected with no surprises, and for people to just do what they're meant to do. But when this masked version of Gangle is challenged about how strict and how kind she's being, she clearly doesn't take it well at all. After lunch is served, we see the staff are now doing their jobs a lot better, but the mood amongst them is very, very low. Gangle takes a moment and steps outside, removes her new comedy mask and lets out this agonizing scream. I think for the first time since the first scene of this episode, we're actually seeing the real Gangle here, and her masking, in her case literally masking, is having a very negative effect on her mental well-being. When Pomni asks if she's good, Gangle replies, "My comedy mask is usually broken by now." I think this line reflects how extremely exhausting masking is for her, especially as her friends are starting to turn against her. Pomni asks, "The mask isn't isn't making you happy?" Which I think really reflects a lot on how neurotypical people don't understand how destructive and exhausting masking can actually be for people. That isn't a criticism of Pomni at all. Up to this point, Pomni has assumed that the comedy mask literally makes Gangle happy. I feel like this episode actually really reflects that that actually isn't the case. After starting to open up just slightly to Pomni, Gangle just very quickly puts the mask back on and goes straight back into defensive mode and back into the restaurant. Suggesting that everything is fine, while clearly it really is not. Closing time approaches and Gangle, still masking, is now very clearly unhappy. I think she was genuinely really looking forward to this adventure and probably expected her friends to enjoy it as well. But instead, her masking has, as this can-do happy persona, has actually ended up alienating her and making her feel like a failure. The mask isn't there to make Gangle happy, it's to give the impression that she's happy, or the illusion that she's happy. I just want to compare the way that Jax and Gangle leave for the night. They both had rotten days. Jax is clearly in a deeply bad mood and exhausted. He just gets in his car and puts his head on the steering wheel, just done with the day. Gangle, on the other hand, stands outside the restaurant for a short moment before taking off this comedy mask and throwing it away, instantly realizing that she doesn't have to be pretending to be that person anymore, pretending to be happy and a team player. She can now finally, after a very long day, be herself again, her tragic self. And this brings a big smile to what, in my opinion, is her real face, which is the tragic side of her. That's just my opinion. It is hard to express how good this can feel after 8 or 9 hours of constantly masking, and I honestly found this scene absolutely beautiful. I really did. All up until the moment of, what happened, but I've been there where I've had a very, very long, stressful day of masking, and at the end of it, it is just this incredible feeling of release and peace. And I thought that was so beautifully portrayed in this scene. Fast forward to the very end of the episode and tragic Gangle is completely back, sitting away from the rest of the group. When Zubal, of all people, comes over to check on her, she tells her that it doesn't matter if the mask was a bust and that she should come over and join the rest of her friends. She even tells her to bring her art over to show her. The art being very significant in this episode, guys. If you go back to the training exercise that Jax had to go through, the videotape Gangle said,
"Now I know what you're thinking. I don't want a career in fast food. I want to be a comic artist and eventually launch my own manga-inspired webcomic. And it's cool to have dreams, but you also need to remember that they're completely unrealistic, and you need to stop trying."
We find out that the dreams that she's talking about here are actually her own. I think this ending was beautiful and such a cool thing for Zubal to do. The world can be an extremely lonely place for a lot of autistic people, and to have someone to check in on you and to make you feel a part of a group can mean more than words can ever express. I love Gangle. I love all the characters from the show, but this episode was such a wonderful example of what someone with autism can go through on a day-to-day basis. It is very possible that none of this was intentional by the writers and I've just completely misdiagnosed the character, but I do feel like a lot of people on the spectrum will watch this episode and will feel the same way about her journey as I did, and actually find some connection with it, and some relationship with what Gangle went through. Sometimes neurodivergent people or people with autism can come off as being aggressive or fake or rude or very demanding, but this is often a mixture of them being overwhelmed by a situation and the fact that they have become exhausted by pretending to be someone they aren't for so long. To me, Gangle is the tragedy mask, and I hope going forward she's able to accept that, and I think that the rest of the group will be more accepting to it now after this episode. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. I got to admit, this is the first time I've ever actually scripted a video, because it's something which is quite near to my heart about this whole autism debate. I did want to make sure I got my words in line for it, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'm not the best at making these sort of videos, and, you know, if you disagree with my theory, please let me know in the comments, guys. But at least for me, as someone on the spectrum who has had a past of masking a lot, I found this episode beautiful and actually really reassuring. I really did. And, you know, my YouTube channel is where I unmask, guys, and so the way I act on YouTube is me being able to, you know, it's how Gangle said how it was a manic episode. That's why I'm often quite high energy in my videos, so I hope that explains that. But I want to put this out there because it really meant a lot, and quite frankly, episode 4 is actually my favourite episode. Let me know who your favourite amazing digital circus character is, and let me know what your favourite episode is. Please like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. I'm the Veggie Gamer, and I'll see you next time.